Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Jake, and unfortunately I am alone once again. There's a lot of movies we want to watch, but Nadia came down with a cold. She's not feeling great at all. She needs her rest, so I told her I'd steal the channel and talk about another filmmaker. This week I did a video about Robert Altman, which some of you seem to like. So somebody asked about Paul Thomas Anderson, because in the video I mentioned Magnolia quite a bit. And all of Paul Thomas Anderson's movies have been inspired, it seems like, from Robert Altman. There's like a huge influence there. Like a lot of people who love movies, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I think I discovered him through There Will Be Blood. Today I'm going to rank his movies, the ones I've seen. There are two. I haven't seen Hard Eight, and I haven't seen Licorice Pizza. I know. Actually, I've seen half of Licorice Pizza, but didn't finish it. So I'm not going to include it in the ranking, but I feel like that maybe says, like, it was good. I mean, it was fine. I was enjoying it, but I was like, I'll finish this later, and then it just never happened. But for now, I'm going to talk about all of his films and rank them based on what I like. So, at number 7, Inherent Vice. I have good memories of watching this movie for the first time. It wasn't everything I'd hoped for. I was really excited. This was like a time when I was super into Paul Thomas Anderson. I was in high school. I was like, yes. And then I watched it, and it just was not exactly what I was thinking it was going to be. I think it's a fun movie, but it's just not really my thing all over the place. And I get that's the point. You know, it's based on Thomas Pynchon. And I'm not a huge Pynchon fan, but great for what it is. There's some great moments, and I do want to rewatch it. And I know there are a ton of people who will defend this movie so much, but yeah, just not really for me. Sorry everyone. Number 6, Phantom Thread. Now this is where it gets hard, because unlike Robert Altman, Paul Thomas Anderson hasn't made like a ton of movies, unless you're counting like music videos and documentary shorts or whatever other stuff he's doing. But he's made so many terrific movies, but with a lot of variety as well. And, Phantom Thread may even be higher on this list the more I watch it. I've only seen it once. I've listened to the soundtrack many times because that's a gorgeous score. This is a, like, deceptively dark film about love. I love this movie because it is very, I think, subversive. It is very daring and kind of bold with what it's trying to say. It has a very kind of like upper class look, or I don't know, very like British proper feel about it, like it's this very intense story, but at the heart of it is just this like messy drama about a little baby who needs to just chill out. I like what it says about love and relationships. It's not one I'd put in and just watch to enjoy, but it is a brilliant movie, which I think it's getting the love that it deserves. What I love about Paul Thomas Anderson is it's similar to what I love about Robert Altman, is that he's willing to put this messiness in there, even though the films don't really look like an Altman movie, and they feel way more rigid in the way like they're trying to say what they are. Especially Phantom Thread feels very Kubrick inspired, I'd say. I love that there's this messiness in the themes, how it just kind of gives you something and it's up to you to interpret it. Renoir does that. I love Jean Renoir. Ooh, another list video coming soon. I don't know if I'll do that. Number 5, Magnolia. Look, for the Magnolia heads out there, I will say that I used to absolutely love this movie. I would show it to my family and friends. I thought that it was just brilliant and perfect. And then I saw Shortcuts, which Shortcuts came out before Magnolia, but Magnolia is clearly, I think I said this in the last video, Magnolia is Robert Altman movie directed by Martin Scorsese. It also has this like high drama, this kind of melodrama that is absent from Shortcuts in a way. Shortcuts is a little more understated. I think that's what makes it work so well. Like watching Magnolia now after seeing it so many times, after seeing other, the films that inspired it. Yeah, this is a little pretentious. It's a little full of itself. It's a little bit like I'm making the movie of all time. I still love it. I still love the characters, John C. Reilly especially. I love the style. I love the boldness. I love the singing and the willingness to go with anything. And I love that ending. Like, it is an iconic ending. I think people who are like film nerds and are obsessed with like filmmaking will be drawn to, because it's so out there. Very much like I'd compare it to Babylon in that way. And I loved Babylon, but it's very much like wearing its heart on its sleeve, wearing its style on its sleeve, trying to make a show off a little bit, which is good to do, from time to time. But I do think that it's funny that Paul Thomas Anderson himself said that he'd want to cut Magnolia down by a lot. Like he's like way too long. Way too long. And I don't think it's way too long, but I do think that that's a telling statement from a filmmaker whose style is way more simple and whose storytelling is way more like spare and clean. So interesting and telling about like where his career has gone and the kind of films he makes now. Number 4. I'm surprised this is number 4, but there's so many good movies. Number 4, There Will Be Blood. I think this is the first PTA movie I ever saw. I watched it with my dad when I was young on DVD. This is one of those early movies I saw where I was like, are they allowed to do that? And I was kind of alienated by it, but fascinated. In the same way I was alienated by 2001: A Space Odyssey when I saw it when I was young, but also fascinated by it and couldn't get it out of my head. I ended up watching it, a bunch of times. Daniel Day-Lewis doing John Huston, which is entertaining and fun. It's very like quiet in a lot of ways I appreciate. Like it's big in scope and a lot's happening, but it is at the core of it is just like this very quiet, sad story about a person who like doesn't really have a soul. Then it has that ending, which is brilliant. There's a lot of acting in this movie, It's also kind of funny. I feel like it's kind of a funny movie. I mean, I don't know what even to say about it. It's brilliant. I think it's funny that PTA said that he watched Treasure of the Sierra Madre like every day while he was making this movie. I've since seen Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Great movie. I love it. I've seen it a million times. But I watch it and I go, how did you get this from this? Treasure of the Sierra Madre, like in the performance of Humphrey Bogart and that character, but very different movies. There Will Be Blood is very slow and measured and has this creepy quietness about it. Treasure of the Sierra Madre has Walter Houston dancing, economical with its storytelling. So I don't know what that was about, but I one day I'll find the connection. Number 3, PunchDrunk Love. Above There Will Be Blood simply for personal reasons. It's more fun for me to watch. I love that it's taking the Adam Sandler like character of like the angry man-child who's like all these outbursts and turning him into like a realistic person in a world where like that's frightening and concerning. It's just such a beautiful like love story that feels so sad but also like beautiful because of that sadness, and the style is it's so dreamy but also scary. It kind of represents what it feels like to be in love and to fall in love, that it's dreamy and very scary. You're giving up a lot of control, and you're putting your trust into somebody, into something bigger than yourself, and it's frightening. So I just love how that movie captures it. Popeye Harry Nilsson song in it, funny and scary, and I think that a lot of great films coming out now by young filmmakers are clearly inspired by this. Philip Seymour Hoffman making a really out there performance, just making this movie even all that better. Emily Watson bringing just such a lovely performance. I love that he made this after Magnolia and wanted to make like a tight 90-minute movie. It still feels very loose, but bold and willing to just like throw things in there that feel like they could be out of place. It's not a message movie, that's what I like about his films. Like there's not really an idea. There's not a statement that you can pull from it. I don't like it when films really do that. Number 2, Boogie Nights. Man, Boogie Nights is great. So fun. I mean, I'd put it above. It has the epic feel of Magnolia, but with like this fun, we're just hanging out kind of style, but is also incredibly dark. It's literally like the prototype for Babylon. Like Babylon is just Boogie Nights, but set in the 20s. I'm not saying that's positive or negative. That's just what it is, I think. Obviously, it's about the porn industry. It's about the transition from the industry in the 70s to the 80s. It has Mark Wahlberg, just incredibly funny performance. It really has the like excitement, the exciting energy of like early Scorsese. Like people who think there's no point in the film, like it's just a bunch, it's just a mess of like things happening. The found family story in a very weird way. And even though it's about the porn industry, but I think it is also like a celebration of like what it means to like come together with people in like filmmaking in general and and building a family when you're rejected. I mean, all the characters in this, they're rejected from their families. They're outcasts. They're loners. They have to find, comfort in each other. And it never gets old. There are shocking moments and twisted stuff. The whole sequence with Alfred Molina is literally perfect. And finally, I'm sure you figured it out at this point, number one is The Master. This is a movie I had to see multiple times to really appreciate. The first time I watched it, I didn't really like it. Then I saw it again, and once you figure out what the movie's trying to do, so beautiful, really weird. It's especially just like the story of these friends. It's a story about, obviously it's based around the formation of Scientology. It's not explicitly stated, but it's loosely based on, L. Ron Hubbard forming Scientology, magical thinking, and how that's affecting leader of the cult, and also this person who's like his guy who like goes around with him. And it's literally this story about the guy who's like all be above and be spiritual and higher than everything and not be part of like the world. And then Joaquin Phoenix is the total opposite, just like animal instincts, not super bright, but they need each other. Like, that's what's so beautiful and weird and sad about it, is that they are so drawn to each other because they are seeking from each other what they don't have within themselves. Beautiful cinematography. I mean, it's shot on 70 millimeter film. It's gorgeous to look at, set right after World War II. And I know that PTA took a lot of inspiration from a documentary directed by John Huston called There Will Be Light, I believe. That's one I got to see in school, and that's a movie about, PTSD and post-war, the veterans coming home from World War II and having PTSD, and it's just an incredible movie. That kind of vibe is there, Joaquin Phoenix is struggling, post-war. He's not a great guy. Ultimately, then also Amy Adams is brilliant as, Philip Seymour Hoffman's wife and kind of in a lot of ways, the brains of the operation, There's a simple way to look at it as this is the Scientology movie. And then there's a lot of layers, and that's what I love about it. It's so sad and sweet. And the final moments of the movie, the final sequence, between Philip Seymour Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix, it's incredibly moving. It has the kind of epic feel and coldness of There Will Be Blood, but with sweetness of some of his other movies. And I think that, at the end of the day, PTA's movies, as much as he goes into the territory of feeling alienation and sadness, there's also that kind of sappy sweetness and loveliness in how he depicts found families and relationships between people. So, big fan. Who isn't? Paul Thomas Anderson, let me know your rankings and chastise me in the comments for not having seen Hard Eight or Licorice Pizza. I will do so if you bully me enough. Anyways, thank you for watching, everyone. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.